Hey there, welcome back. In this part of the course, we are going to start building another function to our Twitter module to help us scrape all the tweets of a Twitter account. This video will be split into multiple parts because it can get a little overwhelming and complicated at first. We will start with the actual scraping of the tweets, and then we will need to handle the infinite loader so that it will scrape how many tweets you want and not be limited by the actual Twitter pagination. So with that being said, let's get right into it. The first thing that I want to do is actually create a new function which will be getTweets, for example, and it's an async function which has the username parameter and also the count parameter, which will be defaulted to 10, for example. This count parameter will basically specify how many tweets you would like to get for this username. So I'm actually going to finish creating this function, and inside of it I want to do the same thing as right here to check if we are already on the same URL, and if we are, then we don't need to go over there, and if we are not on the username Twitter account already, then we should go there. Okay, let's actually go to the Twitter page and let's find out what informations and what selectors we need to have in order to get all the tweets available in this page. Let's first find out what container these tweets have. I'm going to right click on it, inspect, just like we do usually. And right off the start, we can see the actual header that contains the Udemy title, the username, and the date that the tweet was posted on. This will be helpful later on, but right now we actually want to find container of these tweets. So I'm going to go just a bit up and above, just so that we can see which is the exact container of this tweet. And it seems like we have an li right here that is responsible for this whole container that holds the details of this tweet. So I'm going to click on it just so that we can see, and indeed this is actually the list of all the tweets and we can access them from right here. We basically have an element that says ordered list and it already has an ID, and we can use this just for reference, and then we basically have a list of items. So what we need to do right now is actually create a function that iterates over each of these items of the li items and gets whatever data inside of it we need. And then it builds up the array of tweets that we need. I know it can sound a bit complicated right now, but just stick with me and I will show you and guide you through all the steps. So what I'm going to do right now is actually copy this ID, and we're going to use it in the code just like this. We want to actually wait for this ID to be visible and accessible in our page. So just like we did previously, I'm going to say await page wait for, and then I'm going to input this ID, just so that we make sure that all these tweets are available to us. Alright, after that we need to start thinking how we can iterate over all these elements and get what we need from them. Okay, right now let's go back to the actual DevTools and let's see how we build this selector in order to find the LIs inside of the order list element. So it's pretty easy because we already have an ID, and we basically need to write this ID, and then basically we want to get all the li elements which are direct child of this ordered list element. And because this is actually an array of elements that we want to get, we will use document.query selector all, so that we can make sure it gets all the li elements of this query. And I'm going to hit enter, and we can also see all the li elements and we can see the count of them. So from this we know that by loading the Twitter page of an account, firstly we will get access to the first 20 tweets of this user. And in the first part we're going to focus on getting the actual scraping done. So now that we have this query selector and we know it works, what can we do with it? Let's copy it and go right back into the code. What we want to do right now is actually create an element, and let's say tweets selector, and I'm going to use the following function. I'm going to await for the page, and then I'm going to use the $$ method of this page. And I know how this sounds. $$ is the actual function. That's how you access it and that's how you use it. This method actually runs exactly what we did in the console. It runs and returns the elements and the nodes of the document.querySelectorAll, exactly like we wrote in the DevTools. So we're going to use this in order to have the tweet selector, and then we can iterate over each element of this tweets array. And just because it sounds better, let's do it like this, tweets array, and then we're going to use the $$ function in order to give a selector, and we will basically use this ID that we used previously, and we basically want to say that we want to get the li elements of this ID, which is the container of all the tweets on the page. So if you feel like this already got a bit complicated, please also go to the Puppeteer documentation so that you can read about this function and what it exactly does, just so that you can understand it a bit better. In our case, I'm going to give you the exact return of this method just so that you can see it directly in practice. So in order to test this, I'm going to put a debugger right here, and I'm going to go to the index page, and instead of using the login, we don't even need to use this anymore because the page that we're accessing is public already and we don't need it to be logged in. We just need the Twitter initialize function, and also I'm going to comment the details out, and I'm going to say right here await twitter.get tweets, and I'm going to input the Udemy user. Okay, right now I'm going to run it. Let's see what we have. So it stopped in the debugger, and let's check out the tweets array. If we hover over it, we can see directly and clearly that it has an array of 20 elements, and we can have access over each of them just like we had in the console. So let's continue by actually closing this run of the Node.js, and right now we need to worry about how we can iterate over these tweets. Well, it's pretty simple. Puppeteer is very properly done, and we can use the for let off. What I mean by this is that we can basically use for, and then I'm going to say let tweet element of tweets array, and I'm going to say array instead of arrays, and I'm going to open this for loop. Right now we have access to all the elements of the array, and what we need to do is basically use each element in particular and scrape a bit deeper into them so that we can get the text of each tweets in this array. How can we do this? We can basically do this by using the tweet element variable and evaluating on it even further, and this is going to be done with the following function. So let's actually create a variable, let tweet equal, and we'll say tweet element, and right here we are going to basically access the method that it's going to say $eval, and this is basically going to take a selector, and then it's going to give us the element of this selector, and we can do whatever we want with it, just like we do directly in the console. And also, if you're confused about those, again, you can go to the Puppeteer documentation of those APIs. And also, as you can see, when you're writing a function and you want to input the parameters, VS Code is automatically going to give you the documentation for this method. So with that being said, think of this just like finding another selector, but from the perspective of being a li element. This tweet is actually an li element, and we need to access whatever it's inside of it. So let's go to the DevTools and actually open the Udemy page. And what I'm saying is that right now we can act just like being an li element. And we will expand on this, and let's find the actual text of this tweet, because we need to find the selector that we need to use in order to get the text. So let's go a bit below and let's check it out. So what I'm seeing right here is a class with the content. Let's go a bit deeper into this, and we can actually see the JS tweet text container. Let's open this up and see what we have. We have a p element, and then expand on this also, and here is the actual text. This p element or this div class, these are the elements that we want to use in order to get this text. Let's check out the classes and see which one looks a bit more promising. And I think I'm going to go with the div that has the class of this. So I'm going to copy this and let's go back into the code. And I'm going to paste the selector right here, but I'm going to say div with the class of this exact JS tweet text container. So the following parameter is actually going to be a page function, which takes the element that we just scraped with the evaluator, and I'm going to say element, for example, and then basically I want to return the element dot inner text. And this is basically it. So let me go over this quickly again. Basically, in the for loop, we access the tweet, which is actually equal to the li of this stream items ID container that contains all the li's. And basically, as an li, as a list element, we want to scrape further into it, and we want to get the div which has the class of JS tweet text container, because this actually contains the text of it. And because we scraped this and we are this element, we basically have the second function, which is going to take the element as a callback, and inside of it we can use the element in order to get the inner text, just like we did previously right here when we scraped other functions. Okay, I'm going to stop a bit with the talking and let's actually create another variable which will hold all the tweets, and I'm going to say tweets, and it's going to be an empty array. And inside of it right here, because we scraped the tweet, I want to then basically push it to the tweets array, and I'm going to push the tweet. Let's test this out and see if it works. But first, I just saw a quick problem that we have right here, because this T is not capital, it's actually lower. So let's give it a go and see if it works. Twitter.com and then Twitter Udemy, and then it stops in the debugger. Let's actually open up the console just so that we can see. Okay, and let's write here tweets. Let's see what this array has. And actually, instead of text, we have promises that are pending. Let's see what we missed. Tweet equal tweet element, and yeah, right here we actually need to say await, because this evaluate returns an actual promise, so we need to wait for it to finish. Let's close this up and run it again. Udemy.com stops in the debugger, and let's check it out just again. Tweets, and it seems that we have text 20, and then here are all the tweets that we have for this Udemy page. Pretty cool, right? Let me close this right now. And again, just as we did previously, I would like to stop this lecture right here, just because I would like you to try and get the retweets and likes of all the tweets and store them in this tweets array. And of course, not as text, you would need to push an actual object that contains the text of the tweet, the likes of the tweet, and also the retweets of the tweet, and other details if you feel like trying it out, just as an exercise before actually covering them in the following lecture. So, with this being said, I'm going to close this first part right here. Go ahead and try it out, come back when you did so that you can see it from my part also, and of course, thank you for watching.